Look, I'm going to tell you something, Charles. It's not going to cost anything. Charles, I love you.
Well, I love you too. I wish that's the way it worked in my household.
I love you. Ashley, Mike, I love you.
Love you too.
I went to Toronto during the 2019 NBA Finals. For one, the sun doesn't come out, and for two, y'all ain't as friendly as y'all claim to be.
Ray, you killed it.
Well, first, should I refer to Jim as Boo Trotter or Jim Trotter? Because, I mean, you know, I know him as Jim, but the world is blowing up with Boo.
Boo. Boo.
Okay, well, let me say this. Boo had some great reporting.
You know, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be a part of a great weekend, great players, but that is the worst basketball game ever played.
How do you fix it?
I don't know if you can fix it. I mean, I give Joel Embiid, Kyrie Irving, those guys were like competing. Joel was imploring some of the guys to play harder, to try to get some defense in, but no one got hurt. They put on a show for the fans, but that is a tough game to sit through, I'm not going to lie.
It is an honor to be here on Brother from Another. It is an honor to be on your show, Natalie. Honor to see that smile of yours. But I'm glad you're smiling because judging by your feed, I thought you were in a bad mood. Because I'm usually the curmudgeon on this show, and to a greater extent, Michael Holley is more of a curmudgeon than I am on this show. But what you mean the All-Star game was worse than it was expected to be?
I mean, I feel like it's self-explanatory. I think Mike Malone is using the term loosely when he says they put on a show. Like, for who exactly is he referring to? And again, I mean, I wasn't there in person, so maybe the fans in person appreciated it. And I understand that there's a world that exists beyond Twitter. So sometimes it's easy to think what people are saying online is what people think. But with him also saying it wasn't the best game, Jaylen Brown saying it wasn't the best game, I'm just surprised he's also saying they were putting on a show. No, they weren't. And that's part of the problem. They didn't put on a show.
I thought it was a lot of fun. It had its moments in the All-Star game. That's what it is. It's more moments than it is some, battle for conference supremacy or battle for pride. I mean, we thought that the All-Star draft might inspire a level of pride. It was fun. We'll get to the All-Star draft specifically in a minute. The All-Star draft was cool, but of course there's not the intensity, because what's on the line? What are the real stakes here? The Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, mano a mano, that was cool. And I don't know that we've ever really seen that because of this new format. Not that we're drafting, in recent years, drafting players, and last night, of course, drafting them live. Oftentimes, teammates were still teammates in the All-Star game. Seeing them one-up each other was really cool. It was an awesome shooting display. Some of the half-court shots, yeah, I still enjoy that. But if we're in a time and place where there are questions about load management and how that's hurting the game, and what is the answer for load management, what in the hell makes people think we're going to get these players to play hard in an All-Star game? Like, that ship has sailed. That day is dead. We don't roll like that no more. Like, Candace Parker referenced that great 01 All-Star game with Allen Iverson at the end of it. That day is over. So old people like me can wax poetic and be nostalgic for the days when they took All-Star games seriously. They're not doing that anymore because they don't take the regular season seriously. So if they don't take the regular season seriously, why are they going to take an exhibition seriously? And furthermore, Natalie, the moment when LeBron James tried to play defense, what happened? He got hurt. So if you thought that players were going to get together and say, you know what, man, maybe we ought to try to play harder. Maybe we ought to do more for the fans. Like, the game deserves better. Our forefathers, the giants on whose shoulders we stand on, deserve a better All-Star game. Then LeBron goes and hurts his hand, which looked really painful, goes and hurts his hand trying to block a shot. Shit. They ain't playing defense and they ain't playing hard. So what else do you expect? What do you want them to do?
More. I mean, for one,
in a word, huh?
LeBron was already hurt. So shout out to him for even trying. So hopefully he's okay. But we don't have a history. Everyone, that feels like the new talking point this morning that I'm seeing. Not per se just from you, but I'm just seeing people say, I don't want to risk players getting hurt. Like, when has that happened so much that this is a big concern for us now in the All-Star game? And no one is expecting them to go out and put out playoff intensity. That's not what we're asking. But even in the last
just want a middle ground.
Yes, like even in the last few years, I felt like the All-Star game had actually improved with some of the changes they made. So getting rid of the conferences, doing the charities where like you get something for winning, the quarters or the halves, whatever it is, because you did see them at least near the end kind of start to do a little more. So, but this year, even in the fourth quarter, we were all waiting for it. It was like, okay, we know they're going to step up the intensity in the fourth. And that just never happened. I mean, there was literally no effort. And I do feel like the fact that Kevin Durant was missing, Stephen Curry was missing, Zion. Zion's younger, but I say that because I still feel like Bron, KD, even Giannis probably if he wasn't injured. I think some of the older players, they still understand that it's meant for them to put on a show and do a little something for the fans. But I feel like men, I don't want to just be like typecasting everyone, but it seems like the younger players, they're just like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And I don't get it. Like, where's the excitement, especially all these first-time All-Stars? Yes, I do. Where's your excitement for your first time being in the All-Star game? I just, it baffles me.
Yeah, no. Listen, you too young to be sounding so old, but I'm feeling you though. I'm feeling you. Because once upon a time though, you think of Kobe Bryant, and once upon a time, these young guys would come to an All-Star game looking to announce their presence with authority, looking to make a point, looking to put on a show, looking to say, hey, I'm here, or looking to take it to Michael Jordan or something, or just kind of like, hey, I'm a part of this now. I'm, basically having a coming out party. Exactly. It doesn't feel that way. I hear you, but I just think it's the day and age we're living in where load management is not just a trend, but now the norm. It's not just a couple of years ago, it was like, what's up with all this load management? Now it is synonymous with the NBA regular season. We could talk later about player movement and the effect that it's had on the NBA product in general, but I just think that ship has sailed. I think that day is over where the All-Star game is going to matter from a competitive standpoint. Listen, I'll go back to Bud Selig. Man, we clown Bud Selig. Remember when Bud Selig made the MLB All-Star game the deciding factor for home field? Short of going back to conferences and having it determine home court advantage, and maybe that might not even do it. What kind of stakes could you assign to this game to get players to not just play in it, but play hard?
Yeah, I gotta, maybe this is gonna sound messed up, but I do think a lot of this has to do with the game being in Utah. I do. I think that the players were probably not that excited for it, and then like I said, some of your top talent was missing. Look, I don't think we're gonna go back to the days of, the way it was, Kobe and, like the back and forths at the end and stuff like that. But like I said,
KG and them. Yeah.
Yes, I do feel like there were some changes. Like it started to get better, and then this to me feels like an abomination. So I'm hoping.
Oh, abomination! It wasn't that bad.
It really was. What moment? The Jalen back and forth with his teammate. That's the moment.
I thought some of the shooting was impressive. I mean, as much as long distance shooting can still be impressive. Yes,
I enjoy that. I enjoy long distance shooting, but it wears off. It wears off quickly. It wears off pretty quickly.
If Steph would have played, it'd have been a great night, huh? That's what it was. Just go ahead. Steph wasn't out there.
It certainly would have been a better night, but Steph put on a show for the whole thing almost last year. He won, and Jason Tatum was trying to do that, and I think a few others, but it just.
Jason Tatum was incredible.
He was, and I love Jason Tatum. He's my guy.
Even in a game with no defense, and the All-Star game has never really had defense other than some pockets toward the end of the game.
For sure.
But I mean, 55 is 55. Listen, they were all out there getting the same shots, and he got 55 of them things.
Listen, he was great, but I don't know if you remember a few years ago, I don't remember what year it was, but in the All-Star game, Paul George was close to breaking the scoring record, and they did everything to stop him, and he ended up not breaking it because they were like, nah, you're not getting that, you're not getting that. And that was fun. You know, you saw a little bit of that, but like this year, and we're just talking about the game. Don't even get me started on like the skills competition.
Competition sucked.
And even the three-point contest.
Lack of skills. Three-point contest was a dud. Dunk contest, though, come on now. The dunk contest was official. It was official.
Mac McClung was official. Trey Murphy was pretty good, too. But I don't know that it was official. It's being exaggerated.
First of all, and apologies on behalf of everybody for the disrespect that Dominique Wilkins received for being the only man to beat Michael Jordan in a dunk contest. That's when you need an editor and a proofreader. Like, somebody should have read that script before it was read out loud. That's number one. But I bring that up only to say this. How many times has the dunk contests, like across the board, has everybody in the field showed out? There are always people who are in the dunk contest who do not meet the moment. Usually remember it for one performer, whether that's Vince Carter, so it's not all, you oftentimes don't get a duel. Mac McClung, all I needed was Mac McClung. He could have put on an invitation or a showcase, and I would have been here for what he did. And this wasn't grading on the curve. This wasn't, listen, is he a short white boy? Yeah. But his creativity, his flair, his execution, all of those things, and his showmanship. And he hit him with the, it's over. I thought he was spectacular.
During Black History Month. Woo.
Hey, listen, progress. That's what you call progress.
I'm just playing.
Listen, that's what you call progress.
Mac. I love Mac.
I'm with you. And listen, now could it take a step back next year? And could the dunk contest be a dud again next year? Maybe, maybe not. But for one night and for 1 year, it was back. And yeah, of course the white guy won in Salt Lake City. Feels kind of appropriate. So yeah, during Black History Month. But yeah, I thought that was a great showcase. I had fun watching it with my son. Everybody seemed to have fun in the arena watching it. So if nothing else, the dunk contest was a success.
Yeah, and I think most people were saying that, and they were going with the talking point of, oh, he saved the dunk contest. And I'm going to sound like I'm just hating all up and down, but it's sort of like who wore it best. You know how like two people can wear the same outfit, but one just pulls it off and one doesn't, right? Shout out and respect to Mac McClung. He was awesome, but I'm still going to get more excited if Ja Morant is doing those dunks versus him. And that's just what it is. And it may not be Ja Morant, but it's sort of like, I think the last really, really good dunk contest was Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, or the couple that they put on for us, right? And that was that was a surprise. And I think if people reflect back on those.
How many more, how many they say the dunk contest ago was that? Refresh my memory. Because we annually have this conversation about somebody saving the dunk contest, right? It feels like it kind of comes and goes.
I mean, Aaron was the Aaron and Zach has been maybe like 5 years now or 4 years? It's been a while. Aaron was in it a couple of years ago when D Wade, didn't give him the correct score at the end. And so, but I think that first year was a surprise because that was an outlier year. And also, we all knew Zach LaVine had hops, but I think people were surprised about Aaron Gordon, right? I don't think going into it, like not when he came back the second year. So that was like a surprise for us. If you knew about Mac McClung, you knew that he was probably going to put on a show. So that wasn't surprising.
I wasn't familiar, by the way. Like I'm not in these internet streets like you are. I did not, like when I turned it on, I'm like, okay, like my expectations were very, very low for the dunk contest because I was not familiar with most of these participants. With all these participants, to be truthful, this was the equivalent of who he played for. You know what I mean? I was like, wait, this is who's in the dunk contest? And then when Mac did that first one and had Gabrielle Union, like, damn! I was like, okay, Cat. So after that, I was up in my seat. Me and my son watching it, and I'm like, this dude is legit. It was a great story, a G Leaguer on a 2-way contract, coming in and putting on a showcase. Even if the competition wasn't great. Trey Murphy, he had a couple of good ones that might have won in some other years. Mac McClung stole the weekend, so much so that like, the Grammys or the Academy Awards, they had my man presenting the next night. I ain't never seen a dunk contest winner come out and be like, he was like, wait a second, you put me to work again? Like now I'm a host of this thing?
Yeah.
He was an unofficial ambassador. So the dunk contest, thanks to Mac McClung, who can hear Jimmy. He can hear Jimmy. You're too young to get that reference. Mac McClung, the dunk contest gets an A, even if it's not alive and well forevermore, even if it hasn't saved the dunk contest, because again, if he doesn't compete next year, or if he doesn't have some competition next year, we could be back talking about get rid of the dunk contest. But for 1 weekend and 1 year, the dunk contest was as much fun as it has been in recent memory, given the performance that Mac McClung put on. As far as the game goes, yeah, just to put a bow on this whole thing, yeah, the game leaves much to be desired in the area of defense and competitiveness. But that's the era that we live in when load management is all the rage. You cannot expect NBA players who take regular season games off to turn it up a notch for the All-Star game. We got to lower our expectations at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think because people had such low expectations for the dunk contest, it feels much better than it was. It was good. He was solid, and he should get all the love for what he did over the weekend.
He was great. He was spectacular.
Yeah,
He was spectacular.
Okay.
It is hard to do dunks that nobody's seen at this point.
It's not about that nobody's seen, because like everything at this point, you're doing what someone else did. Yes. But it's just, like I said.
I don't remember nobody touching the backboard with the ball and dunking it. Or I don't remember that.
I mean,
I don't remember seeing
it's been so. It's not that it wasn't impressive. It was. So that's what it sounds like I'm saying. It was impressive. It's just that one thing alone did not save the dunk contest. And, there's so many Nike athletes. Maybe the league should think about somehow partnering with Nike to incentivize their athletes for some of them to get into the contest. I know that there are some of the stars are with other, brands, but Nike's the big one because like the dismissiveness to me in the way John Morant's just like, I'm not doing no dunk contest. When you have people like Michael Jordan who have done it, Dominique,
right, Dr. J has done it.
Yeah, like some of them
like all time have done it.
It's a level of condescension that I don't even understand. Like, what, you too good for the dunk contest? I don't understand what it is. And I'm not sure that it's all about load management. I would really like to know the reasons, because they get out in the 3-point contest and embarrass themselves, because that was an embarrassing effort as well.
Yeah.
So why would you embarrass yourself there, but you're okay? But you don't want to do the dunk contest?
And Blake, some star players have done the dunk contest and have been a part of the revival of dunk contest. I'm not sure what Ja's rationale is. It'd be nice if Ja felt like, oh, okay, let me go at it with Mac McClung next year and kind of give him a challenge or whatever, since he was hot in the streets right now. Or the dunk contest just does not have to be NBA players anymore. I mean, let it be an open invitational. And the other Mac McClungs who are out there on YouTube, who are out there, making mixtapes or whatever, or who are amateurs but not in the NBA, let it be an invitational for them. I don't need NBA players in the dunk contest to enjoy the dunk contest.
I would prefer that.
I don't need it to be stars. I just want somebody who, to your point, Nat, is excited about it, is committed to it, has put the thought and the creativity into it, and wants to be there. Give me that, and I'm good with it.
I could go for that. Go ahead and pitch it. You have connections, Mike.
Not as much as you. I couldn't believe how upset you were. I'm like, man, it's worse than expected. It's like, damn, you and Michael Malone.
Put it like this: the draft will be more watched than the game.
What do you think?
What's up, Vin?
What's going on? I mean, I'm always right, so you're not really surprised about that, right?
First of all, before we get into the weekend and the day's developments in the association, I like what you're doing here, dog. I like what you got going on here. I'm feeling it.
Hey, if we can't have Michael Smith hairlines, we can at least try to grow some facial hair.
I'm not mad at you. You look experienced. So in your vast experience, not just in life, but when it comes to the NBA and specifically, covering the NBA All-Star Game. And Nat referenced it earlier. Maybe it has something to do with it being in Salt Lake City. Were you underwhelmed? And that's saying something. Were you underwhelmed by the All-Star Game in particular and the weekend in general?
I will borrow a phrase from a friend of mine when she talks about her expectations for men. She says, the bar is the floor. So if the bar is the floor, and I was still underwhelmed
like the ceiling
by
is
the
the roof?
entire weekend. Yeah, the bar, it's just low. There are low expectations. And the players still managed to underwhelm rather. And because it's Salt Lake City and everything else, that was not a pleasant place to be. Like a memo to the NBA, maybe All-Star Weekend should only be in New Orleans or warm weather cities, right? But other than that, the stars don't seem incentivized to play hard, to come out. It seems like players are far more impressed with themselves sitting on the sidelines, dressed, dipped in butter and everything else, than they are actually in promoting the game. Like, I'm not to go old man yelling at cloud here.
Far be it from you to do that.
Yeah, but there was a certain level of pride in All-Star Weekend, even just personal pride in going against, the 2 point guards going against each other. You know what I mean? 2 centers. Right. Remember they froze out Shaq in his first couple of All-Star games.
There was a lot of pettiness. Yeah.
Why can't we have competitive pettiness in an All-Star game? And furthermore, why don't the stars feel like not necessarily an obligation, but they're incentivized to perform in the dunk contest? Like, I don't know where that came from. I kind of know where it came from, but these dudes, I was really disappointed. I was very disappointed.
Well, you say you kind of know. What's your hunch?
Yeah, I do too. You go first, Vinny.
I will let Natalie take the floor.
No. I
have y'all had this conversation already?
No. I'm feeling me and Natalie are here on the dunk contest.
Where's it come from?
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it has to do a lot with LeBron never doing the dunk contest. And a lot of these guys came up watching him,
kind of
right?
following his lead.
Yeah, and like that. So it's like LeBron didn't do it. So, I mean, we're talking like, in the last segment I was saying, Jordan, all these players, Vince Carter, they've done it. But that's not really who they grew up watching. And I think because he never did it and sort of never co-signed it in that way, then it's just trickled over, but it's more extreme. Because before you would have Paul George is doing it.
Which stars are we talking about? But which stars are we talking about? We're talking about Ja and who else? Who else are we saying that we want in it that thinks that they're above it all? Because I just want him healthy. I don't give a damn about the dunk contest, okay? But didn't Zion Williamson just say he would entertain doing it? Did I misunderstand that?
Zion needs to entertain getting on the floor. You know what I mean? Well, exactly. That's what he needs to worry about.
Ant Edwards said he wouldn't.
What do we want to see?
Ant Edwards said he wouldn't.
Okay, all right.
And also, it's not just because before you've had Zach did it, but he did it really before he was a star. But you had Paul George do it before, John Wall do it before. You've had
Kobe did it.
Right.
So for all the players that want to say, LeBron didn't do it, but Kobe did it.
But
he wasn't. But I'm saying if you're a star in the NBA and you want to take the position that the dunk contest is beneath you, the way that LeBron seemed to approach it, somebody else may say, but Kobe did it, but Jordan did it. So some of the greatest players of all time have done it. If you want to look at it that way, you can look at it whatever way you want. Conveniently is what I'm saying.
It's two things. One, these dudes are really sensitive about what's being said on social media. And the Twitter reactions, and imagine if a star got out there and got beat up by Billy Hole out there. You know what I mean? Can you imagine if Ja Morant went out there? And it's good to see your Billy and Billy Hole beat you. You know what I mean?
But Vince,
yes.
I have a question for you, because I've heard you say before it's about, part of it is about they don't want to get embarrassed, and I think that's where you're going. But didn't some of them just embarrass themselves in the 3-point contest? Is one more acceptable to embarrass yourself in than the other?
Yeah, I think it's more acceptable to say you missed shots than it is to say you tried something in an exhibition, a creative exhibition, and you happened to miss. I think All-Star Weekend needs a whole new revamping, or at least a talking to. Like it needs the enema.
A come to Jesus meeting. No, well, I want to hear your solutions. We're going to talk about all the problems we want, but let's get into the solutions. But a couple of things. One, just like Nat said earlier about now LeBron's hurting his hand last night, notwithstanding, we don't see devastating season-altering or career-altering injuries in the All-Star game. So the idea of somebody getting hurt by playing or showing some effort in the All-Star game seems like a straw man. But I'm saying, like, likewise, what star? And Dwight Howard comes to mind. Blake Griffin comes to mind. What star have we seen actually embarrass themselves by taking part in the All-Star game? Because if you're good at dunking, you're probably going to be good at dunking. It's about how much effort and creativity you're going to put forth. Second thing, that word pride keeps coming up. Once upon a time, there was a pride in playing all 82 games. And Vinny, like, I don't know if you heard it, but like I said to Nat in the last segment, if these dudes are operating under a load management philosophy, what makes us think that anybody in today's game is going to approach the All-Star game with more seriousness than they approach the regular season, which they actually get paid for?
Well, it's a multitude of things. And a friend of mine, Nate Jones, who had Jones on the NBA on Twitter, very, very smart. And Nate said that players are so exhausted by the time Sunday comes that they don't have anything left. Exhausted from all the obligations, not the obligations from the league, but from the sponsors and the shoe companies and everything else. And my response to that would be, your game is supposed to augment those things. It shouldn't be, those sponsors are the number one obligation for you. Like, the better you perform on a Sunday night after the Super Bowl, when there's nothing else going on, you have the world stage for a night. And it doesn't seem like players are incentivized or understand the importance of it. And for me, here's the thing. We always talk about how players of today are standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Standing on the shoulders of previous eras, whether it's player empowerment or All-Star Weekend or salaries or whatever. What are they doing to be the giants for the next generation? Are they taking this as seriously as they should for the guys coming behind them? Or are they just eating off the fruits of what everything else that has been done before them? And I think there's been some level of disconnect. It's load management, it's social media, it's a bunch of different things. And it's also a you can't make me do anything part of it too, that these guys feel like they don't owe anyone anything. And you don't owe anyone anything, but you do owe the game. I do believe you owe the game. You owe the game itself, but they phrase that into like you owe the media, or you owe the public, or you owe the mean tweeters, and they put it all in this big pot of jambalaya and say, I'm going to do what I want, which is not do anything.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know. It needs to be about owing anybody. You should just want to do it because it's fun. Dame Lillard wanted to add that to his. Dame Lillard ain't had nothing to prove by winning a 3-point contest, but he's like, hey, the greatest shooters in our game's history, most of them, if not all of them, have one of these. Now I got this on my resume because Dame gets it, and so that should really be the attitude. Is not like an obligation or like I don't want you to do nothing you don't want to do, but you should want to do it. Like my wife says. I should want to clean up, or I should want to do some of the stuff. Like you should want to do it because it's fun, and because the game, like Vinny on and about that.
His face so perplexed.
but no, like I want you to want to do the dishes. Like why would I want to do dishes? But no,
do I need to put on my love doctor coat and give you some marriage advice?
No, Vinny, I'm 18 years in. I'm good. But I want to. But one of your columns recently, you seem to take exception to the idea, and Kevin Durant spoke to this at All-Star Weekend, that and this is going back to the standing on the shoulders of giants and all the rights and the privileges that their predecessors have fought for. This era of player movement. You don't seem to think it's as good for the game as Kevin Durant, or even for that matter, as I think it is. I think it's great for the game the way Durant talked about. I think it's awesome that players have agency over their careers, and the interest of the game is at an all-time high in large part because of it.
Is the interest in the game at an all-time high, or is there interest in the drama of the game? The game should be centered in terms of the conversation.
Are those not one and the same?
No, they're not. Because sometimes you get so caught up in the conversation, in the drama, in this soap opera, that the game becomes an afterthought. it's supposed to go hand in hand, but it doesn't. And for Kevin Durant, who I found that answer to be really interesting because he said, all that drama and interest is good for the league. But wasn't it the same Kevin Durant who was so upset about people tweeting at him about his career choices and everything else that he was stressed out about it? And maybe that's why he made some decisions that he made.
Don't worry about Kevin Durant. You're right. Kevin Durant talks out of both sides of his mouth. I think the fans like it. I think, I won't say the game. You're right. I'll distinguish between the game and the drama. Let's call it the product. And deep down in places he don't talk about at parties, let alone at press conferences, Adam Silver likes it. It's like
does
that
he?
drama. Like,
does he?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't think he does.
Think he does.
I don't think fans like it either.
I think
fans don't constantly talking about the possibilities of players moving and trade, the trade machine. Everybody got their own damn trade machine. Yes, sir.
Michael Smith. We say this all the time, that Twitter is not the real world, right? And I think a lot of times we confuse the interest in that particular silo for the masses. Mm-hmm. The NBA is trying to catch the NFL in terms of viewership, eyeballs, popularity, and they're not. So you can't say that the people are liking it.
Wait, they're not as in they're failing, or they're not as in they won't?
I don't think they're catching the NFL. I think they had aspirations to. Remember Mark Cuban, pigs get slaughtered and everything else, and they were very aspirational for all that. And the NFL even wanted Adam Silver to come run their league and all of that type of stuff. They had a huge aspiration to catch the NFL. So to say interest is at an all-time high, show me where. Show beyond Twitter, beyond Instagram, because we say that's not the real world, right? And maybe you're saying, and if you're going to say,
is the bottom line not as big? Is the bottom line not as healthy as it's ever been? Is the game not growing? Does it not continue to drive the culture in ways? Listen, they may not have the revenue that the NFL does. They may not have the ratings that the NFL does. No entity in this country does. No form of entertainment captivates our collective imagination like the NFL. So everybody's chasing the NFL when you talk about eyeballs. But in terms of like the culture, and popular culture, not just the culture, capital T, capital C, but popular culture, the NBA has a stranglehold on that, does it not?
So,
Natalie?
So may I approach the witness like a hostile witness?
Approach the witness like a hostile witness. Go ahead.
So, Michael Smith, you mean to tell me you believe that fans like buying tickets and not knowing if a player is going to play that night?
No, that's different. No, I don't. No, load management. Okay, that's a separate conversation, and that is an issue, which is why I said how could we expect better from the All-Star game? We were talking about player movement.
And I don't think
buying a jersey and not knowing whether that jersey is going to be good in a year.
Yeah.
Natalie, maybe that's an issue.
Yeah, and I don't. Listen, we love to talk about the drama on NBA Twitter because that's what we do. But at the end of the day. And I love the fact that players have agency too, but I don't think it was anticipated them having agency would mean a player of Kevin Durant's stature would be on his fourth team. There is something to your connection to the fans and a franchise that's missing when you just keep hopping around like that. Look at even the Lakers. And LeBron, if you talk to true Lakers fans, they don't even see him as a Laker great. They don't have that connection to him. Like, they're like, okay, thank you. You got us a chip. But there's something that's lost and missing when you do that. And I think that's a part of fandom, like feeling that connection with your team. Even if you talk to Warriors fans and you ask them their all-time Warriors, Kevin Durant is not second on that list. He's like fourth or fifth, maybe.
Okay, well, okay.
But you give me Kevin Durant, I'll give you Giannis, I'll give you Steph. Yep. I'll give you Dame. And at this rate, your favorite player, Natalie, Jokic. I mean, there are players who have planted their roots in certain organizations and who seem to be lifers. I mean, that could change, of course, in the case of Giannis.
No, you're right. And you know what's funny? I asked the same question to C.J. McCollum, the NBPA president, Saturday, and he brought up those four players. But I will say this, only two of those guys have championships. Dame and Jokic are not on the level, even though Jokic has the MVPs, of a Steph and of a Giannis because you don't have the championship bona fides. What gets lost in constant player movement? Mind you, LeBron has played for 4 teams, right? Kevin Durant has played for 4 teams. James Harden has played for a lot of teams.
LeBron for 4? 3. He went to Cleveland twice.
Cleveland twice. Yeah, that's two different franchises to me. You left and
Come
came
on,
back.
stop it, Vinny.
Stop
it.
That's two different relationships. My bad. Is that
We
not
ain't
how
the
you
same.
count it?
Right. No,
It's a stretch, but
fair.
okay.
That's fair. You were saying.
But my larger point is, if a player stays and grows, and I'm not saying players shouldn't keep the foot on the necks of the franchise ownership and management to make sure that they're, putting forth the resources to win, and that if that's not happening and you don't want to be there anymore, okay, leave. But what gets lost in that is, think about this from this standpoint. It's not just Magic and Michael and Larry Bird. It's the cast of characters that were around them that became popular, that became household names, players who weren't not as good as the superstars, but you remember Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Scottie Pippen and all of those type of guys, because it was a story that was formed and you could follow the supporting pieces together. And subsequently, here's the thing that people don't realize. When the Lakers and Bulls are bad, they're still on TV because of the equity of those players who came in generations before that made them a brand name, and people still watch. When you now have fans who are fans of players as opposed to franchise players.
I go where they go.
Where does that leave? Where does that leave the franchise? It's supposed to be the player and the franchise marrying each other, not one side having an inordinate amount of power over the other. That's not the covenant that professional sports is supposed to be. Absolutely anything corrupts.
You went biblical. You went covenant. Listen, I long for the halcyon days of the Bulls and the Pistons and the Celtics and those institutions just as much as anybody else. But, and this point has been made plenty of times. I do want to get to one other player who's been on the move quite a bit before we let you go, Vinny. But I'll just say this last thing. This point has been made quite a few times in this discussion in recent years about player movement. Is like, okay, you want players to stay put. You want them to stay where they at. You want them to grind the hard way. We try to get Damian Lillard out of Portland more than Damian Lillard has tried to get out of Portland, because we define players by rings with a Z. So don't ever have a conversation about another great player. I'm talking about Chris Paul, and talk about what they don't have and then blame that player for chasing it. Same with Kevin Durant. No. Don't say Kevin Durant jumped on Steph's team and his bandwagon, and then when Kevin Durant is searching for God knows what, I don't know what he's searching for, but this, I'm conveniently using him as an example. Don't say, oh, well, Kevin Durant, why you keep team hopping? Just stay with one team. He's trying to get the championship that y'all say would validate him. So, having said that, do want to get to one more player. Both of you. What's up with the Clippers, speaking of not having a championship? Like, they needed point guard help. They needed defense and three-point shooting. They're getting Russell Westbrook, who's now on his 5th team, 6th if you count Utah, I believe, but, he's about to be bought out from Utah. It's like, why would the Clippers look at what the Lakers just experienced with Russell Westbrook and say, yeah, we want some of that, Natalie?
I have no idea. I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. Hopefully Vincent knows, because it makes sense from Russ's perspective. He's moved around so much. He's in LA. He gets to stay in LA. That's where he's from. So I do understand that. But I don't see how this is going to help the Clippers. Like, I'm not seeing the fit. I don't get it, honestly.
Well, I was called Vincent for the first time today, and that's only airline attendants and my mama, when she mad at me, called me Vincent. You know what I mean?
It's a sign of respect.
I appreciate it. I'm just playing. No, with Russ, like you said, Michael, they needed discipline and structure and order from that point guard spot. What about Russell Westbrook's style screams out discipline, order, structure, and playoff savvy, right? But you know what it does scream out? It does scream out Paul George having a certain level of influence, having played with Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City.
This feels more personal than professional.
It's influential, and players see players as their best selves. They don't see players often as the diminished version. You can see Russell Westbrook having a night where he turns back the clock and maybe he has a triple-double and he has an effect on winning, and he thinks that next hit is around the corner. And it might not come to the next album or 2 albums later, but he's still chasing that hit.
Is he starting or coming off the bench on the Clips?
I think he's going to be starting. And to your point, and let me backtrack for a second, Michael Smith, I have zero problem with Kevin Durant actually being where he's at. I had no problem with him leaving to go to Golden State. I really didn't have a problem with him leaving Golden State.
I'm laughing at Natalie, not you, Vinny.
I'm annoyed. I was annoyed with the Kyrie Irving experience. But once he wanted to get off that ride, I think everybody could see he was like, "Oh no, I've seen these movies before. I'm straight."
The ride
Vinny,
that he created and built. Listen, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with going to one team, but like the constant movement, no one's going to be upset if Dame moves to one team. We're talking about 4 or 5 teams. Come on now, this is getting to be a bit much.
Hey, you could argue the Warriors fans ran Kevin Durant out.
Oh, please. Well, then he should then maybe go see someone about that if we were able to run him out. Silliness.
What's a bigger trigger for Natalie? What's a bigger trigger for Natalie? Anything related to Kevin Durant or Nikola Jokic being a clear favorite for a 3rd straight MVP? I don't know what pisses her off more.
It's all insanity. It's all insanity.
It's definitely Kevin Durant. It's definitely KD.
Eric Bieniemy now has 2 Super Bowl titles alongside aforementioned Andy Reid, and still does not have the title of head coach.
I truly believe that for Eric Bieniemy to have any chance to be a head coach in the NFL, he has to leave Andy Reid and he has to have success elsewhere. And if he doesn't, people are going to continue to attribute all that has happened in Kansas City to Andy Reid. They will never give Eric Bieniemy his due. And that is unfortunate and that is sad, but that is the reality of the NFL today.
Eric Bieniemy has been tremendous for us, and I think is tremendous for the National Football League. And I'm hoping he has an opportunity to go somewhere and you know, do his thing where he can run the show and be Eric Bieniemy.
Interesting. There's a lot to unpack there with Mike Jones and Jim Trotter.
Boo.
No,
Hey,
boo.
boo.
I'll leave that for Natalie. That's all you. That's all you. Mike Jones, what do you think of this move for Eric Bieniemy? I love it for him being an assistant head coach and offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. What do you think of the move for him?
I don't love it because he should be a head coach of his own team right now. I don't love it because he's gone to a situation where it's one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the whole league that he's got to coach at to get an opportunity to prove what he can do. I guess if he's able to have success there, then there are no excuses because you're working in a situation where you've got an awful owner and maybe he's on his way out and changing hands, and you don't know if Ron Rivera has any long-term stability, security. You don't know who your quarterback is. There are just all these questions swirling around him. And so if he can succeed there, he can succeed anywhere. But he shouldn't have had to go to this place.
No question.
To prove himself.
And I'm glad you said that. And Jim and I talked about this last week that people are going to move the goalposts. Owners that don't want to hire him, even if he goes out and turns Sam Howell into Sammy Ball, there's still going to be some excuse, those that want to make those excuses. Having said that, the reason I said there was something to unpack is like, oh, I hope he goes somewhere and gets a chance to run the show. Well, if there was a cap on his influence, and that's not to discredit anything he did in Kansas City, but if there was a cap on his influence and there's room to grow, I do like him going someplace where he will get all the credit. It ain't going to Ron Rivera. He will get all the credit. There won't be any qualifying the success that the Washington's offense, if any, experiences under Eric Bieniemy, and he has the assistant head coach title. So even if he shouldn't have to go this route, Jim, it is good for his resume. I'm trying to look at the bright side here for Eric Bieniemy in terms of his career path.
Mike, I'm going to say this to you. I said this to you last week that I felt he had to go simply to get out from under Andy's shadow for the sake of those who want to use that as an excuse. Not that it should matter at all. But I'm going to say this to you. I don't think it matters what he does in Washington. I think the die has been cast. I think these owners have made up their mind on Eric Bieniemy for whatever reason. And I just think that this whole thing is ridiculous and is a farce. This may be good for Eric, but it is bad for the league in terms of the image that is being presented about how it feels about black coaches. So 5 years as an offensive coordinator, 5 AFC championship game appearances, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 championships, 2 MVPs for the quarterback as well as Super Bowl MVPs, and you're telling me that still isn't good enough for you to get an opportunity as a head coach, and we're looking around seeing who all the others are being hired right now, who they are. So from that standpoint, again, I think this is good for Eric in terms of being able to run his own shop, being able to put together his own staff, all of those things. But I believe that the die has been cast, and I don't think these owners are ever going to hire Eric head coach. I believe he is the modern Sherm Lewis.
And I think
you might be right about that. Sorry, Natalie, real quick. You might be right about that. You might be right about that. I pray you're not right about that. Just to be clear, y'all know y'all preaching to the choir. We all look at this issue in the same regard with the same level of frustration. But in the meantime, all Eric Bieniemy can do is continue to move forward and seek out opportunities to grow. And this does seem like a growth opportunity. Not that he should need it, but it does seem like a growth opportunity. And who's to say how things play out in Washington or anywhere else where one day maybe he had to wait too long. Maybe he's not the modern day Sherm Lewis. Maybe he's Tony Dungy. And maybe he's somebody who had to wait longer than they should have, but they end up getting, just as a for instance. So in a world in which I should not have any optimism, Natalie, I should not have any optimism about Eric Bieniemy's opportunity if he hasn't seen it already. Maybe, just maybe, he ends up being a head coach and is a better prepared head coach than he otherwise would have been because of what's before him in Washington, is what I'm trying to say.
Can I just jump in 1 sec before Nat speaks? And I hate to cut Nat off, but here's the thing, like what Mike Jones said. He is going to what has been a dysfunctional franchise, which we know is potentially up for sale. So if a new owner comes in a year, let's say, and says, you know what, I want my own guy. Now what? Eric's out on the street. He's someplace else. He doesn't even get the opportunity to do the things that we're talking about. Like, this whole thing stinks to me. I'm just being frank with you. I'm so tired of it.
That's real.
Seeing lesser qualified. I know. I'm sorry, but Nat, go ahead. Real. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's real.
You didn't cut me off. I guess where I'm concerned, and I don't want to be like a skeptic because I've kind of been that all day today, but it's just the upside to me doesn't feel that real. If it sounds like a lateral move that's being dressed up a little bit. And then also, I feel like the downside of it is a much bigger risk, because if for some reason he fails and it doesn't go well, and that's not what I want, I hope the best for him. But if it does, it's going to be confirmation bias. It's going to be, this is what we thought. That's
but if he fails, he was never going to get the job anyway, right, Natalie? I mean, we've already determined that they've already made up their minds about him. So what's the downside if he fails?
Who knows? A worse position, or just not, he was already in Kansas City. We've talked on the show about them potentially being a dynasty. You've left Patrick Mahomes to go to this situation. There's nothing about this that feels better to me. It just, I'm really frustrated by it. I don't really like the move, but he obviously did what's best for him. So I just hope the best for him.
Yeah, why couldn't he have gone somewhere like Baltimore, where you've got a quality quarterback? Why did it have to go to a desperate franchise that's in awful shape? Why couldn't it have been somewhere where he's going into a quality situation and have an opportunity to prove himself? That's just, I was hoping when it seemed like the mind was made up, Andy kind of seemed like was making it sound like he was already going to move on. I just wished it could have been in a situation where he had something quality to work with, whether it's work magic with Kyler Murray or work magic with Lamar Jackson or something like that, instead of the scraps that you got in DC.
Absolutely.
No, he definitely should have had his pick of jobs. The one other situation I do want to touch base with y'all on, and this one fascinates me. Another guy that we were recently frustrated by, who got done dirty, was Steve Wilkes in Carolina. They ended up not hiring Steve Wilkes after he did do an incredible job, and hiring Frank Reich. What do y'all think of what they've done with the rest of the staff? Jim, we were just talking about Jim Caldwell. Now he's a senior offensive assistant. He should be a head coach, okay? They brought in Ejiro Evero from Denver to be the defensive coordinator. Jonathan Cooley's coaching secondary and cornerbacks. D'Angelo Hall came from the media to also coach DBs. Deuce Staley's got the title of assistant head coach with running backs coming from Detroit. They brought Sean Jefferson from Arizona to be wide receivers coach. And Thomas Brown, who was coaching tight ends most recently in Los Angeles, is now got the title of OC. Now, they're all under Frank Reich. But what do you think of how Carolina's been moving with the coaching staff they've assembled, Jim?
So this is the new Black Panthers NFL version, right?
Black Panthers. I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
You see what I did?
You know what? Okay, boo.
Oh, you got him to say it.
You got me to say it. That was good. Black Panthers. You got me to say it.
But the reality is, Mike, is what you said. It's like we're good enough to have all these jobs underneath the top job. And so for me, look, I think that he's put together a tremendous staff with a lot of experience and talented people. But again, we are still held one rung from reaching the top of that ladder. And it just bothers because these men have earned that opportunity. And they should have that opportunity, as I have said, to succeed or to fail on their own merits. And that's big here. I'm not saying that every one of them will be successful, but they have earned an opportunity to either succeed or fail on their merits, and they are not getting that.
Last word, Mike Jones.
No, totally agree with everything that Lord Trotter said. Hopefully they all succeed and get their jobs elsewhere. But we know, in the words of Jay-Z, still.
Yeah, I mean, we know how this movie ends, and we've seen this movie too many times. I do love that there are more guys that we're talking about right now are actually in the offensive side of the ball. That part maybe doesn't lead anywhere, but that's a change from where it used to be.
Yep.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.